Professor Fawzi al-Fakhrani was a very intelligent archaeologist. And I asked him, Professor, what do you think, where is Cleopatra buried?
Terrifying discovery at Cleopatra's tomb in Egypt that changes history. Uncovering the past hidden treasures. Archaeology beckons with a siren's call. Cleopatra's tomb in Egypt holds the promise of rewriting history's narrative, an exhilarating quest that leaves no stone unturned. Join us on a mesmerizing journey where buried secrets may emerge from the depths of time. What astonishing revelations lie in wait, concealed within these ancient chambers. Get ready to be captivated by enigmatic secrets of Cleopatra's tomb, breathing life into the legends of yesteryear. Egyptologists have made a potentially significant new archaeological discovery that looks to have been made in Egypt. Excavators have found a tunnel beneath the Taposiris Magna temple, which is located to the west of the ancient city of Alexandria. Based on their findings, they believe that this tunnel may lead to the burial site of Queen Cleopatra. Evidence that this is indeed the case needs to be seen, but such a discovery would be a big find with the potential to rewrite what we know about Egypt's most renowned queen. If this turns out to be the truth, it would be a find. Plutarch, who wrote a biography of Cleopatra's husband, the Roman general Mark Antony, and is responsible for the lengthiest and most detailed account of the latter days of Cleopatra's reign, claims that Antony and Cleopatra were buried inside of Cleopatra's mausoleum. Plutarch states that on the day that Augustus and his Roman army entered Egypt and occupied Alexandria, Antony fell upon his sword, died in Cleopatra's arms, and was subsequently buried in the mausoleum. This all took place on the same day. 2 weeks later, Cleopatra went to the mausoleum to make offerings and pour libations, and while she was there, she took her own life in a manner that has never been fully explained, although it is a common misunderstanding that she was bitten by an asp. After that, she was also entombed within the mausoleum. In the days that followed, Antony's son, Marcus Antonius Antillus, and Cleopatra's son, Ptolemy XV Caesar, also known as Caesarion or Little Caesar, were both assassinated by Roman forces. The two young men were also buried there after their deaths. In the unlikely event that the mausoleum of Cleopatra has not already been obliterated by the waves of the Mediterranean, together with the majority of the Hellenistic city of Alexandria, and if it is discovered one day, this would be an unrivaled archaeological discovery, a finding that has the potential to reshape history. Even while the tombs of many renowned historical monarchs are still standing today, for instance, the mausoleum of Augustus in Rome, who was Antony and Cleopatra's bitter opponent, the contents of the tombs have frequently been looted and lost over several centuries. The tomb of Philip II of Macedon, who was Alexander the Great's father and was discovered at Virginia in the late 1970s, stands out as a significant exception to this rule. The discovery of the tomb in its entirety has made it possible for decades of research to be conducted on its contents, which has contributed to an expansion of our understanding about members of the Macedonian royal family and their court. The same thing would be true if Cleopatra's tomb was uncovered and it was discovered to be complete. Egyptologists, classicists, ancient historians, and archaeologists would be able to derive an enormous amount of fresh information from the contents of this. The majority of what we know about Cleopatra and her reign comes from ancient Greek and Roman literary sources. These texts were produced long after the Egyptian queen's death and were generally unfavorable toward her. Although we do not have a large amount of material that reveals the perspective of the Egyptians on Cleopatra, the information that we do have, such as honorific reliefs on the temples that she erected and votives dedicated by her subjects, provides us with a different understanding of who she was. The moral implications of digging up Cleopatra's bones. To this day, the grave of any other Ptolemaic emperor has not been discovered. It has been stated that they were all located in the palace quarter of Alexandria, and it is assumed that they have all been submerged along with the rest of that section of the city. The architectural and material contents of the tomb alone would be enough to keep historians busy for decades, and they would reveal an incredible amount of knowledge on the Ptolemaic royal worship and the fusion of Macedonian and Egyptian culture. But If Cleopatra's remains were also found there, they could tell us a great deal more, such as the reason for her death and her physical appearance, and even provide an answer to the difficult question of whether or not she was of African or European descent. Should we have any hope of finding Cleopatra's remains and conducting an examination on them? From Tutankhamun to the common ancient Egyptians whose mummies have been unearthed throughout the ages, there is a lengthy history of incompetent management and poor treatment of the dead that can be traced back to ancient Egypt. Even though time has mercifully passed since Victorian dinner parties featured the unwrapping of mummies as a sort of entertainment, individuals who work in heritage are increasingly raising concerns about the appropriate treatment of our predecessors. In the year 2022, researchers uncovered a massive and stunning tunnel underneath a temple in the old ruined city of Taposiris Magna on the Egyptian shore. The tunnel, which the specialists refer to as a geometric miracle, was located beneath the temple. Kathleen Martinez of the University of Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic and her colleagues discovered the structure 13 meters or about 43 feet below the ground when they were conducting continuing excavations and research of the temple. An amazing 1,305 meters of sandstone had been cut through the tunnel, which stood at a height of just 2 meters. According to a statement released in November 2022 by the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, its layout is astonishingly comparable to that of the 1,036-meter tunnel of Eupalinos, which was an aqueduct built on the island of Samos in the 6th century BCE. When it was first built, the conduit set new standards for both its design and its construction, earning it the reputation of being an engineering miracle. Even if the Taposiris Magna tunnel isn't the only tunnel of its kind, the engineering behind it is nonetheless incredibly astounding. Although there are similarities between the Taposiris Magna tunnel and the Eupalinos tunnel, the function of the Taposiris Magna is not understood at this time. Parts of the tunnel are located underwater. Martinez, who's been working at Taposiris Magna since 2004 in the search for the lost tomb of Cleopatra, thinks that the tunnel could be a potential lead in the search for the tomb. In the past, the excavations have produced evidence that appears to point to the well-known queen who was also the last of the Ptolemies. Ptolemy II, son of a famous general under Alexander the Great and Cleopatra's ancestor, established the city of Taposiris Magna in the year 280 BCE. Cleopatra herself governed Egypt from the year 51 BCE until her death by suicide in the year 30 BCE. The group concluded that the temple was devoted to the god Osiris and his queen, the goddess Isis. Isis was the goddess with whom Cleopatra sought to cultivate a close relationship. Coins with the names and likenesses of Cleopatra and Alexander the Great have been discovered there, as have statues of the goddess Isis. In addition, burial shafts with burials that date back to the Greco-Roman period were discovered within the temple. Cleopatra and her husband Mark Antony were probably buried in tombs that were very similar to one another. This would be the case if their bodies were ever discovered in that area. The researchers were unsure as to whether or not the tunnel could lead to these long-lost tombs. Nonetheless, more investigation may provide additional information. The following step will consist of exploring the Mediterranean Sea that is close by. Several earthquakes struck the shore between the years 320 and 1303 CE, which resulted in the collapse of a portion of the temple, which was thereafter consumed by the waves. In addition, earlier digs had uncovered a tunnel network that extended from Lake Mario to the Mediterranean Sea. It doesn't matter if the tombs are discovered or not. If we excavate these ruins thoroughly, we might be able to learn more about the fascinating ancient city. The tunnels already produced several valuable finds, including shards of pottery and a chunk of limestone cut into a rectangular shape. It has been 13 years since Zahi Hawass, who was the Minister of Antiquities at the time, made the following statement. If we uncover the tomb of Cleopatra and Mark Antony, it will be the most important discovery of the 21st century. Even if we did not find the tomb of Cleopatra and Antony, we discovered significant findings both within and outside the temple here. We talk so much about the queen and the discoveries related to her, the archaeologists have also depicted what Cleopatra looked like. A few of the ancient authors did describe what Cleopatra looked like, albeit with a rather limited number of specifics. An ancient Greek historian named Cassius Dio, who lived between the years 164 and 235 AD, referred to Cleopatra as a woman of surpassing beauty. Cassius Dio stated that during the encounter between Julius Caesar and Cleopatra, Caesar, upon seeing her and hearing her speak a few words, was so completely captivated, which is why the Roman general swiftly acquiesced to Cleopatra's desires. In the same text, Cassius Dio made other references to Cleopatra's beauty on multiple occasions. Although it is fascinating, this does not teach us very much about any of Cleopatra's unique physical characteristics other than her purported beauty, which the historian would have known based on previous reports because he was born after she had passed away. Plutarch, who lived from approximately 46 to 119 AD, made a few passing remarks about Cleopatra's appearance in his work titled Life of Mark Antony. Plutarch, in contrast to Cassius Dio, did not think Cleopatra's beauty to be particularly outstanding, but instead admired her brains and character. The Greek historian and philosopher wrote that her beauty, so we are told, was not itself outstanding. It did not immediately strike those who saw her, yet being with her had an inescapable hold. When talking with her, she was persuasive, and the character which surrounded her whole manner in the company had a force to it. When writing its history, Plutarch, who was not around during Cleopatra's time, would have had to rely on accounts from earlier times for his information, and this point cannot be emphasized enough. Cleopatra is portrayed in many works of art. It comes to reason that portrayals of Cleopatra that were made during her lifetime would provide the most credible information regarding her physical appearance. There are still some reliefs, statues, and busts of Cleopatra that have been preserved, even though Octavian Augustus attempted to eradicate any images that had been preserved of the Ptolemaic queen. This was primarily accomplished because Cleopatra had a friend named Archelaus, who offered a bribe to the Roman emperor in the amount of 2,000 talents to ensure that the remaining artworks were not destroyed. Joyce Tidlesley, an Egyptologist, believes that depictions of Cleopatra were created using either the Egyptian or the Hellenistic artistic styles. The images from the Hellenistic period are of greater assistance when attempting to define the appearance of Cleopatra. Archaeologist Bernard Andrea described and observed that the Hellenistic style tended to be more naturalistic and realistic, but the Egyptian style tended to give its subjects an aspect that was more divine and symbolic. And that's all for our video today, but we'll be right back with more soon. Please don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel.